Hi, good day. My name is Sarah Grace Atuan, and I am from class Z12 of Gillet 2. And today, I am to present my synthesis composing of the topics and activities we have discussed and finished for all of the given modules of this term. In this synthesis, I will be discussing the three modules that we have. These three are our first module entitled The National and the Global, our second module entitled The Empire Outside World Literature, Colonial Past and Post-Colonial Present, and our third and last module, which is entitled Body, Mind, and Desire. Starting off with our first module, with the title The National and the Global. As our subject's focus is on the literatures that are prominent around the world. This means we are to be involved in different literary materials from every part of the continent. We are to learn about the differences and the similarities of these materials, and also what is the significance of literature in these countries. But before diving deeper into the literary materials provided inside this module, we'll first start off with elements of fiction. What are the elements of fiction? Elements of fiction are what fictional stories are composed of. The following are characters, narrator point of views, language, dialogue, setting, plot, theme, terms, devices and style, and the structure of the story itself. These elements act as the building blocks of fictional stories. Without them, or even just one element is missing from the structure of the story, this collapses, and it loses an integral part of the plot. Moving on, I have chosen one of the materials provided from our first module, which is entitled The Taximan Story. This is a story depicting a Singaporean taximan and a father of 8. Recalling the everyday encounters he experiences and sees inside his taxi. He engages in a one-sided conversation with a passenger, which he calls Madam, and shares his encounters with Singaporean teenage girls selling their bodies to tourists for extra cash. Fueling the extreme revulsion he feels from this fact, the taximan, who is also a father, learns that his daughter is actually a part of this demographic and grows a heavier disdain towards these young teenagers. Nonetheless, He, as a taximan, is an instrument for these teenagers to go to their designated places with the purpose of selling their body, showing how social constructs change throughout the years and how even if we hold contempt to certain matters, we are still to be held accountable as we turn a blind eye on them. Lastly, I have chosen to dive deeper into Vicious. I have chosen Vicious as this story greatly resonated with me. As a queer person myself, I felt strongly connected with Stuart, as being unafraid of saying vertical yet obnoxious statements that are not for the faint of heart. However, 48 years have passed since Stuart and Freddie have been together. Yet, Stuart has never mentioned of their love affair to his mother, which shows that even if the society is starting to open up for homosexual relationships, not all queers feel safe showing their true self to the community, even to their closest relatives, which is still prominent in our generation. To conclude the first module, I was able to grasp a clear understanding of the structure of fiction, how to create a fictional story, what are the factors that are used to create a well-written story, and the reality of social constructs in this generation. And also, I was able to enhance my active listening and productivity at a limited time due to our sandbox activities that were done and accomplished both in person and asynchronously. The next thing that I'll be discussing is our second module, which is entitled The Empire Outside World Literature, Colonial Past and Post-Colonial Present, which is centered on materials that will make us contemplate on ideas regarding our identity, authenticity, and lastly, the world order. There are three key points that I'll be discussing that is essential to this module. These three are: first, the post-colonial literary theory, dealing with literature produced in countries that were once or are now colonies of other countries, which we can take for example Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, which were written and derived from the reality of the Filipino people while we were all under the rule of the Spaniards. The next point to take in is hegemony. Hegemony is the dominant influence of a civilization, society, nation, or elite over others, usually used to describe nations that have the ultimate power over other nations, in which we can also take into account Spain and how they have power over us and their other colonial territories through influencing trade, legal laws, economic system, military, technology, ideas, culture, globalization, and soft power, such as the educational system and also the media. Lastly, I would like to introduce the poem entitled Telephone Conversation. Telephone Conversation is the poem that highlights the impact of racial discrimination in our society, with its story centering around two individuals talking over the phone. When the landlady, who is over the phone with a man who is about to rent an apartment, eventually learning that he is black, she goes on to discriminate, showing how the effects of colonialism is still hindering the growth of our society. To conclude this module, all of the materials given are a joy to read and watch, as this feeds my curiosity on historical events, and as someone who is an avid fan of history and enjoys reading and watching materials that retells historical events, some of these materials made me wonder how many aspects of history were actually altered. And also, how did all of the nations really came about? These modules served its purpose and objective to make us think thoroughly of what has been happening to our country and what needs to be changed and improved. This module has brought me closer to my national identity and cultural roots. Next is our third and last module, which is entitled Body, Mind, and Desire. Just like its title, this module focuses on how our body, mind, and desires take form, and eventually result to scenarios which contribute to our personal development. First is Dear Evan Hansen. Dear Evan Hansen is a musical that focuses on Evan Hansen, a high schooler who has severe social anxiety. Evan has written a letter that was not supposed to be seen by anyone, which is regarding his life. Eventually, this letter has landed on the hands of Connor's parents. Connor is a guy who had died due to suicide. Evan assumed the identity of being Connor's friend and subsequently took advantage of this situation to gain the feeling of favor and belonging. This material is incredibly dark yet very realistic, giving the community a chance to become more aware of social anxiety and how to deal with it rather than neglecting it. Additionally, as this is a musical piece, for a person like me who is such an avid fan of music, I have chosen to point out two songs from the show that has caught my attention. First is the song Waving Through a Window, and the second is the song which is You Will Be Found. I have chosen these two songs as they feel close to my heart. First, Waving Through a Window is a song that perfectly depicts anxiety, in my opinion. Anxiety is one of the main ideas the show circulates on. Specifically, the lines step out of the sun if you keep getting burned. For me, it's a straightforward analogy with anxiety. People who are socially anxious are scared of neglect. Thus, before they experience it, they run from it. Like how we run from the heat of the sun when it strikes directly at us. Meanwhile, the second song is You Will Be Found. It is a song that spreads the idea that no one is alone in this journey. And one day, someone will find out what they are running from and will guide them through making peace with it. However, if we are to connect it with Evan Hansen himself, who has lied to other people about being closely related to Connor, taking advantage of his story, we can say that this is also a message to Evan that one day he will be found, or rather, his secret will be found. This is interconnected to our mojo, as this represents how the mind works, how it affects our body, and how these factors form our desires, which, in this situation, our desire to feel loved and important. The next visual material that I'll be discussing is the Vagina Monologues, which is a one-woman play performed by Eve Enotzler, exploring women's sexuality in a much straightforward way. What caught my attention in this visual material the most is its direct implication of how women think of their vaginas so often. Wondering how other women's vagina looks like and exploring their body. It is incredibly eye-opening and also discusses women's sexual desires. Yet, still implies that women are more than just sexual objects. The next visual material that I'll be discussing is entitled The Vagina Monologues. The Vagina Monologues is a one-woman play performed by Eve Ensler, which is exploring women's sexuality in a much straightforward way. What caught my attention the most in this video material is its direct implication of how women think of their vaginas as often. Wondering how other women's vagina looks like and exploring their own body. It is incredibly eye-opening and also discusses women's sexual desires, yet still implies that women are more than just sexual objects. Additionally, the Vagina Monologues being under our module as a material for reference is quite astonishing, to say the least. Considering how, for centuries, the population has always viewed the woman's reproductive system and sex education in general as a taboo topic to talk about. Nonetheless, two things that I have liked about the Vagina Monologues is, the first one is the line which says, "Looking at your vagina is a whole day's work." Although Eve Ensler actually meant this for a funny rebuttal, it is actually quite true. And I love how openly it was discussed, because it brings back to the days when it was so taboo to talk about it pertaining to women's vaginas. People would rather not utter or look at it, which is seemingly abnormal. Another one that I liked is the line, "Women like to talk about their vagina." Because, based on my observation, interestingly, I have noticed that this is actually true. It is an interesting topic that rarely reaches its correct audience due to society. But women are open and would like to hear more about their vaginas, as they wonder what it should look like and what is its difference. Additionally, having the last 5 years, which is a musical play, as a material under our module, there are some songs that I was drawn to. The first song that I was personally drawn to is the song If I Didn't Believe in You. Especially the emphasis on the line, "I will not lose because he can't win." As you could feel the emotion, the character's conviction, and it signifies the end of the relationship that was built over time. Another one that made me drawn to the most is a specific scene from the play wherein Jamie and Kathy finally meets, which was at the middle of their wedding. As for me, this is significantly showing that no matter how everything has started or ended, what will remain forever is the process. It is something that no good or bad beginning and ending can change. To conclude the third and last module, as I am currently in the phase of finding myself back, healing my inner wounds, and trying to learn more about myself. This specific module has helped me a lot in regards to my personal development. I was able to hone my ability to observe and to understand. It made me much closer to finding my real identity, opened me up to being sexually empowered, and gave me a valuable lesson that everything that you think or feel has a reason, and that the desires of your mind is interconnected with the desires of your body. To sum it all up, I feel extremely closer to my inner being and feel much more comfortable on being who I am due to this module. An additional module that I would like to discuss is entitled Roots and Routes, Travels and Encounters in World Literature, which discusses how intertwined the literatures published around the world are, with materials such as the Shield of Achilles, which sheds light on the episode in which Achilles' mother, Thetis, overlooks Hephaestus, making the shield of her son. Next is Iliad, Homer, and Shield. Overview. With the shield being Achilles' symbol that was shown in the last part of Iliad, which is a literary material written by Homer. All of these has been granted us with further focus on the representations of each literatures published around the world, how these has prompted to the creation of other relevantly known materials, indicating that there will always be a blueprint for everything. The journey of learning for this subject has been a blast for me. I always felt a rush of excitement on my body whenever a new material is provided for us to study. It is because all of the materials are interesting enough, and it really does contribute to our knowledge and understanding. This subject has opened me to a diverse way of learning. It has also taught me how important time management and being focused on a specific lesson is. I was able to get lessons from all of the modules that I feel I'll be able to apply not only to my life, but also to my future endeavors. Again, this is Sarah Grace Atuan from class Z12, and this is my video synthesis.